My guest today is Damien Adler. Damien is a psychology practice owner and the co-founder of PowerDiary. Damien's natural love for people extend to his family, his profession, and of course, PowerDiary, the software that he co-founded. His role as head customer support and community perfectly reflects his priorities of the software. Damien has been a registered psychologist since 2003 and has a background in health administration, previously holding senior positions in the public health sector. He and his wife, who is also a psychologist, have built a busy group practice where he first discovered his passion for using technology to make life easier for healthcare practitioners. I personally use PowerDiary in my practice when I ran my clinic in Ocean Grove, and I'm actually excited to share this interview with you today because I had the opportunity to really buy in to PowerDiary back when it was like very first starting out around 13 years ago. So this is a great interview where Damien really just shares his passion for people and his passion for empathy and his passion for technology and how he sees all of those working together to be able to save practice owners time, effort, energy, doing the things that by having software that does the things they don't love to do so they can get back to doing the things that they do. Damien is a lot of fun and I trust you enjoy this interview. Welcome to the podcast, Damien.
Thank you for having me on.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. Thank you for making the time. For our listeners as well, I know many of them will be stoked to be able to hear and listen to a bit of your story. Do you want to share a little bit of the backstory about how did PowerDiary come to be?
Yes, thank you. So I'm a psychologist, and my wife is also a psychologist. And the very brief version of how PowerDiary came to be, my wife and we started a private practice many years ago, a psychology practice, and we realized quickly, we were trying different software systems, and because we knew we needed something, and we just couldn't find a system that really sort of had everything that we wanted. And long story short, we ended up with a very early iteration. We were using a system that it was very basic, but it had some good sort of foundations. And so we ended up deciding that, look, we would purchase that sort of code base. And I partnered with my brother, Paul, who had a very strong technology background. So he'd actually built a business that was providing support to small and medium-sized businesses around Australia. And that had become the largest one in Australia. Telstra, or a division of Telstra, had bought it. And so it was great. Just at the time that I was looking for a technology partner, he, with the experience working with small business and doing really well at that, happened to be free. So I said, hey, I think we can do something here. And so we ended up starting out with this sort of code base of a skeleton, if you like, of a former system. We ended up rebuilding everything anyway, and that's sort of where PowerDiary, started from. We kind of launched it from that, and it just has grown and grown over the years. So. I think you in fact were a very early customer. So we were just talking before we went on very early customer of PowerDiary many years ago. And
we used it in our clinic and loved it. It was a great platform from where we come from to where we went. It was incredible to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the journey has been fantastic. We've really grown. So now we're in Australia, the UK, and the USA and Canada. So now it's and we've got local team members in all those countries, and it's really great. It's been very sort of exciting journey, and it's really been mainly kind of word of mouth that that has sort of spread, which has been phenomenal. That we've got really passionate customers, and we just keep listening to what they tell us and listen. Look at what's happening in the industry, improve the product, and we just keep building. And that's it in a nutshell.
That's amazing. And so you obviously work with how many different modalities do you work with or professions do you work with in PowerDiary?
It's across pretty much everything in the allied health space. So where we kind of stop short is we don't specialize in doing like GPs or medical. We actually do have a bunch of GPs and medical specialists, but we don't actually particularly cater to them. So we look at all the other kind of modalities. So things like massage, like physio, like psychology, counseling, osteo, that kind of full spectrum. We've got pretty much every profession you could think of that fits under that that sort of allied health umbrella, is PowerDiary, and it manages every aspect of the business, or just about. So you can, everything to do with managing, the patients, and managing bookings, and collecting, information, storing notes. The whole lot is all under one product. So it sort of streamlines everything and automates everything.
Yeah. Back in like when you think about when you were building it, like what are some of the elements that were like, it has to do this, and it has to do this, and it has to do this, based on what you had learnt in your own practice?
Yeah. What we really learned is we wanted multiple things under, this is in the early stages, under the one sort of roof. So initially we were doing things like, we were using like Google Calendar or something for bookings. We had a few different things we were using for generating invoices. So we had originally some Word templates, and then we might have been doing some, I think, Zero stuff. Then we had other stuff for notes. We were writing paper notes back in those days, and all the sort of different systems. We had Excel actually to track, income. But it was very messy. And so our initial thing was we wanted something that was online rather than hosted. And believe it or not, back in those days, everything was loaded onto people's computers and they had servers in their office. We don't want that. We want it to be cloud-based. And we want those sort of core functions of appointment management, patient management, invoicing, notes, and the ability to send out SMS reminders sort of in one sort of system. So it started really simple like that. And then as things have developed, and we've just continued to sort of evolve, and now it does everything, whether it's telehealth or credit card processing, or online bookings, or whatever you can think of. Pretty much, PowerDiary does it now. But yeah, in the early days, it was really about consolidating these different systems into one simple thing to use.
And that's where we were. We were in a place where we'd used something we'd bought, and then had to pay a monthly subscription for. And we're like, we want cloud-based. We don't want that server. It was like, right.
Yeah.
And it was new. It was new. So I rode a dinosaur to my clinic. And not really. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but 2010, 2011, it seems like a long time ago.
It does. Yeah.
Nowadays, what is something you're super proud of that you were like, I had this idea, or this is what somebody suggested? Is there something that you're like, this blows my mind and I'm stoked about it?
But there's probably a few things that sort of fit in that category. I think the net effect, if you like, of everything is kind of what blows my mind the most. So our kind of process, or our driver, is to streamline the administrative component, right? And to really sort of free up people in terms of their time, their focus, and have everything automated as much as possible, right? So every administrative task, we look at it and go, how do we make that like simpler? Can we either eliminate it? Can we, automate it? Or if it has to be done by an actual person, can we make that super, fast to use? So, things like templating everything so that people can do that, whether they can click a button to start telehealth that's all integrated, or they can, one of the things that was amazing when COVID sort of first hit, and we were like, okay, we need to get telehealth out, we need to get online forms out, we need to get the credit card processing, all that, we can sort of just go bang, 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 and it's sort of that kind of responding to the market sort of need that, great. One of the things we just released in the last few months is a concept called automations, right? Which means you can now set up like triggers and go, well, when this happens and then this happens, then do this, send this off, or send an invoice at the end of 7 days, or whatever it might be. You can actually automate these processes directly. And instead of us sort of needing to build each of the automations, which in the past we would sort of look at it like, what can we build that will automate? Now we've built a much more flexible framework where people can set the triggers and then set what they would like to have happen when those trigger conditions are met. And that we're still adding to it, and we'll never stop. But seeing that, makes such a, it's rewarding, because no one likes doing admin, right? And it, even if you've got a great admin team, if you do have administrative support, there's so much better stuff that they can do, because they're usually really creative, really capable people. But if they're doing tasks that can be automated, like, that's a waste of their time and, their skill. So by outsourcing that to the system and letting the system take care of that, free them up to do something that's far more, valuable and enjoy, more challenging, more enjoyable, and so forth.
Definitely. So is that something like, can you set up like like automated sorry, I've just lost my train of thought.
That's all right. Yeah, yeah,
State
yeah.
again.
No,
Um,
yeah.
can you set up things like automated for not retention, that's not the right word, reputation. Can you set it up for reputation management? So like setting an automatic Google review or something like that? Is that
You
one of the
actually
things
could,
that will...
yeah, you could. I mean, we don't have that as a custom thing, but you actually can, because you could do you set up a trigger of a certain, like after an appointment or after a particular whatever the trigger is you want to use. Then yeah, you could fire off a template that has a link to say absolutely here. You could do a review, or you could even trigger something like sending off a form. So if you wanted to, instead of sending them straight to Google, excuse me, if you want to screen them first,
Yeah, good call. Give me a 1-star or 5-star here.
yeah, exactly. You could actually do that and send off an online form to kind of get their experience or an indication of, or you can even send off an email like rate your experience, and if they click on like a 5, it's a link that takes them to do a Google review. If it's something that they're not so happy with, you could say, it alerts you to tell you that, hey, this person wants to be contacted or something. So
Yeah.
yeah, there could be, and that's the thing when in building the system that we have for automations. Some of their good ideas actually come from our customers, where they go, they'll build things with it that we hadn't thought of.
Yeah.
And if they run into something they would like to do that we don't have that trigger for, they just let us know, and we can then, the product team will look at it and go, okay, that's going to be useful for other people as well. And then they can actually build in like a new trigger or a new action that we want to, they want to take. So it's really exciting to see how people utilize those things in really creative ways. And yeah, it's all part of the fun.
Definitely. And it's the usability of it too. Like I get it because I love to geek out on some really cool techy stuff, and I understand the kind of, this is what we intended. Why are they using it like that? What a great idea. Like, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
To see that coming through. And it's a really fun game to play, especially when you have lots of creativity and license to go, it's your triggers, have a crack. If this and that, send it out. It's great.
Exactly. And in fact, what you were saying too, that, I mean, I like obviously to geek out and these things that sort of, but also one of the things that we found, and I'm sure you found that a certain segment, like, a huge percentage really of people aren't that either comfortable with the kind of businessy aspect of their business, or they're intimidated by some sort of technology. And so we also try and make it, like I say, usable. And our customer, success team, we actually hire for like their people skills and their personality, and then we train them on any technical stuff they need to know, because we've found if we go that way, we get people that can engage at a normal level. They don't speak tech gobbledygook, they'll actually speak like a normal human being in normal language, and we can always teach the tech skill. But if we go the other way, it's much harder to teach a technical person like the communication skills or how to be a people person. So it's
so true. And especially in whether it's massage industry or the allied health industry, we are very people-y people.
Yes.
Often, not always, but often low tech. We often make the joke of, where's the any key? Like, if that's the kind of tech level, we will sometimes be working with people, right through to, I've programmed my own, insert blah, blah, good for you. And being able to have people that get it. And I think communication, particularly online, can be such a barrier for a very kinesthetic industry.
Absolutely.
And being able to engage. And it's certainly something, I mean, I have been crawling over websites for the last few weeks as I've been researching. And I would say with PowerDiary, there's just so much information that's really helpful. It's written in a very friendly, engaging and way that's actually, this makes sense. I can actually make sense of what I'm reading here.
Yeah, no, that's very good to hear, because that's definitely the aim. And we actually revise a lot of those articles and things. We sort of we'll take second passes. We'll look at things like, if we're finding that someone will look at the article but still have questions, we'll look at, okay, how do we improve that article so that, or if something isn't clear and we can, they contact and ask about it, then we'll try and constantly learn, from that, and update the language and make it more, accessible. So good feedback to hear.
Yeah, no, it's great. And what about AI? Do you guys like where do you see AI supporting you guys' growth in the future?
Well, I think we've got look naturally as we're excited by technology, right? So I mean, AI is super exciting. I think it will and like is and will have a sort of significant role to play, and obviously it's in the very early days. Now, because of the information though, that we're handling, and we've also got to be careful and not get or be very like contain our sort of excitement and take very judicious steps to implementing and utilizing AI so that it's safe and that that the data is not going to be exposed or utilized in any way that isn't intended or outside of the sort of environment and so forth. So we are working on some AI features, as literally as we speak, and we've gone through a lot of the compliance and looking at all the kind of things that are associated. And unfortunately, the technology as an industry has historically not got a great reputation, especially with something new, like and it's going boom. There's often a kind of like try and gain market share no matter what, just like, it's like that old Facebook thing that Zuckerberg used to say, oh, move fast and break things, right? The mentality was just, well, trash the regulations, potentially trash whatever, like just do what you need to do. But and that's not something, of course, when we're looking in the health space, we need to be extremely careful about what what data is exposed, what uses it can be. We don't want to like when people first started using OpenAI and they weren't aware that that all goes into the training model, right? So and there were companies that uploaded, people that uploaded not in the health space, but they uploaded in technology space, plans of how they're building, their computers and fridges and microwaves and all sorts. And then you could ask questions of, and you'd get back information that was this sensitive, because people weren't aware that this is all part of the training. So, but I think we will end up, or at least in the medium term, the really sort of obvious cases where it can leverage. Of course, any of the correspondence, right? Like, is made a lot easier by utilizing AI. With the right controls in place, you can have AI looking at like any kind of treatment notes with the right controls in place, like I say, and can draw out summaries and things that can be utilized in providing feedback to other health practitioners or looking at if there are referrals that need to be made and so forth, drawing that content. Note writing is another one where we can see a lot of potential for streamlining that process, even just bridging the dictation to notes and having that be intelligible and well structured and so forth. I think in the short term, those sorts of things can be done and they can be done safely with the right, when built the right way, and and making sure that the model being used is appropriate.
Yeah.
But then, it's such a fast moving industry too. It'll be like anything like we were just talking about before, when customers find new and innovative ways. I think we'll see the same thing with AI, that the way that a lot of interactions and bookings and things might be made could really end up being handled by AI. But I think that's still going to be a little bit of time away before that side of the admin will be taken care of by AI. But in the short term, tools that really help practitioners with those other tasks, I think they're on the chopping block now, and it's what we're what the sort of things that we're looking at and have got a rollout plan for.
Yeah. And so it is like it is moving really quickly. There's so much that's happened. And yet there's also there is time. I think a lot of even now see Facebook ads that are like, if you don't understand AI, you're missing out. It's like you're missing out on nothing. It's 18 months old. Yes, a big uptake. Yes, a bunch of people use it, but it's like a lot of things. It will be there for the next it's going to be part of the next generation, so it's going to
totally,
and we can just learn how to use it well.
I agree. And I think the other part to that too is that the interface like with AI will continue to improve, right? So it's almost like the ChatGPT, OpenAI type, that's kind of like, back in the very early days, with Windows and with DOS, where literally you'd be typing in, open C drive /, and you'd load a file. Like it's that kind of level of interface, right? And you could see at that time people saying, oh, if you don't know about computers, you're getting left behind. Well, no, like you say, plenty of time, but also the user interface will become more and more sort of intuitive and more just naturally woven in, to what we do. And I think you don't really need to understand all the workings behind it, other than to understand, obviously, the safety elements for health data, and also the limitations of it. That you've seen people get themselves into trouble where they think, they ask a legal question. They,
I love the little thing at the bottom that says ChatGPT can be wrong. You're like,
yeah, exactly.
I've seen you tell me some lies. I checked.
There was a case, I think, in the US I was reading about where I think lawyers asked for some precedents to prove a particular point, right? And I think it was OpenAI, but don't sue me at OpenAI if it wasn't. But it just generated them, right? Like fictitious. They were fictitious, right? And they submitted it to the court case to say, here are the precedent cases in relation to whatever it was they were trying to support their opinion. And of course, they got in awful trouble for that because, and they just hadn't really understood that it's not bound by fact. It can hallucinate. It can come up with make up its own, its own stuff.
And it does.
It does.
Brilliant for social media. Brilliant for writing emails.
Yes.
Love that. There's so many things it can do, but be mindful of, like I said, make sure you're putting out accurate information.
Well, this is actually one of the things that came out in our testing when we're looking at testing different ways that AI can be utilized. That done in the wrong way, it can manufacture patient presentations, right? So it could, like, in doing notes, and we'll control for this in what we release. But if it's not structured in the right way, it can sort of add in additional content that is not part of the presentation or not part of the notes. Now, if that's not carefully managed, then people can end up signing off on stuff that is, they're signing off as if they actually said it, they wrote it, but in fact it was hallucinated into it.
Completely. So have you got a 10-second PowerDiary elevator pitch for us?
I think I would say, like, PowerDiary is a sort of all-in-one system that's designed to automate your practice and make your practice more efficient and enjoyable to run. That would be my elevator pitch.
Nice.
Just get rid of admin, enjoy your practice more, make it more efficient, more fun.
Which is what we all want, right? We just want to be helping people. Tell us, why should someone choose PowerDiary? If they're out there looking, they're using something right now, they're not enjoying it, whatever, like why should they choose PowerDiary?
I'm going to say there's solid reasons and then there's emotional reasons, and I'm going to go with both, right? So first, just from a very practical kind of, using logic, we've been around for a long time. We're growing. So we're one of the most established sort of players, which is great. And we're only in this position because of our wonderful, customers. But what it also means is that from a security point of view, and we have all the kind of compliance stuff in place. We get external audits done. We have our ISO 27001 certification. We've got our GDPR. We've got everything that, all the things that actually takes a lot of time, and I think companies need to be at a certain maturity to kind of do that. The other thing is that our time in the market means we've built it out, right, over time, and that way it's got that complete kind of feature set, and we're big enough that we can actually be very affordable, right, as well, because we've got the cost of running the system is spread across a very large user base. Then that means that we can make it affordable for people that would otherwise not be able to do it. Now, that's the sort of logical, practical things, and it will definitely help you run your practice. Now, more on the kind of emotional side of things, right? Really comes down to that kind of, as practitioners, right, understanding what it's like to run a practice is something that is very much sort of unique to PowerDiary. We often if you look at competitors, there's some that have got some experience, but a lot of them are they've come from different industries. They've never really run a practice and not It's not really their core sort of thing prior to. With that, we've been there, like actually done it. We keep very close contact with our customers. We literally capture every single suggestion, comment, feedback that goes in, so that we're really keeping close to understanding where things are moving to, what things people are after. And I think that idea of, we were talking a little bit before about how people that are in healthcare, they go in to help people, right? And the business side of things and the administrative side of things is something that often does not, come supernaturally. Like we actually get that, like, in a very raw, real sense, understand, what that's like. And we sort of bring that type of thinking to the system, to try and go, okay, like how do we make it easier to do things? Like we know people don't like debt collection, for instance. Well, how do we make it easier to get online payments and ensure that all that is taken care of? That sort of stuff that it is hard. You can't necessarily just get it by studying it objectively. It's sort of being in and having done it ourselves. It gives us a very different, I would like to think anyway, a different approach. And we have an empathy for running practices, which is very real to us. So that would be my pitch about why PowerDiary.
And which makes beautiful sense too, because your background is in psychology. Yeah, so your background is
Yeah.
in a very empathetic space. And how do you take very empathetic people and combine them with technology in order to be able to make a difference and make their lives simpler?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that, even when we were starting our practice, we got business coaching, and thought that was a really, because we understood what the limitations were of our own, and hopefully your audience and your people do too, right? Because that we come to it as health practitioners with a certain perspective and certain drivers, and the other stuff doesn't necessarily come naturally, right? Like knowing how to run a business and feeling okay about putting ourselves out there, or presenting and marketing in a way that we feel comfortable with. All those things, that's not not something that comes naturally. So I think we've really tried to really keep that approach. It's really the driving thing of PowerDiary, is understanding those pain points and then trying to solve them one at a time.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate being able to chat with you and connect with you, and I'm sure that our listeners will as well.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.